Captain Lisa Rodriguez never imagined that her childhood fascination with military aircraft would lead to a legal battle that would change Army policy forever. Growing up in San Antonio, Texas, she spent countless hours at air shows, mesmerized by the thunderous roar of Apache helicopters performing aerial demonstrations. The sleek, deadly machines represented everything she wanted to be: powerful, precise, and essential to protecting American lives. When Lisa enlisted in the Army at 19, women were prohibited from serving in direct combat roles under the 1994 Direct Ground Combat Definition and Assignment Rule. This policy excluded female soldiers from assignments where they might engage in direct combat with enemy forces. For helicopter pilots, this meant that women could fly transport and medical evacuation missions, but were banned from flying attack helicopters like the Apache in combat zones. Lisa's journey through flight school at Fort Rucker, Alabama, was marked by exceptional performance that frustrated her instructors. She consistently outperformed male classmates in both academic and practical evaluations, mastering complex flight maneuvers and weapon systems with remarkable skill. Her instructors knew she was Apache material, but military regulations prevented them from recommending her for attack helicopter training. During advanced helicopter training, Lisa watched as male pilots with lower scores were selected for Apache programs while she was assigned to Black Hawk transport helicopters. The injustice burned deeply, especially when she knew she could outfly many of the men who received coveted attack helicopter assignments. Her commanding officers acknowledged her superior abilities, but explained their hands were tied by Pentagon policies. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Vasquez, one of the few female helicopter pilots in senior positions, became Lisa's mentor during this difficult period. Colonel Vasquez had faced similar restrictions throughout her career and understood the frustration of being denied opportunities based solely on gender. She encouraged Lisa to excel in whatever assignment she received while working behind the scenes to challenge discriminatory policies. Lisa's first assignment took her to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where she flew Black Hawk helicopters supporting Special Operations Forces. While not technically combat missions, these operations often involved inserting and extracting troops in hostile territory under enemy fire. Lisa quickly established herself as one of the most reliable pilots in the unit, volunteering for the most dangerous missions and consistently bringing her crews home safely. The contradiction between policy and reality became apparent during Lisa's first deployment to Iraq in 2004. Female pilots like Lisa were supposedly restricted from combat, yet they routinely flew into hostile territory under enemy fire. She participated in countless missions where her helicopter took ground fire, where she had to make combat landings under pressure, and where her decisions directly impacted the success of military operations. On one particularly dangerous mission, near Fallujah, Lisa's Black Hawk was hit by enemy fire while evacuating wounded soldiers from a combat outpost. With hydraulic fluid streaming from her aircraft and warning lights flashing in the cockpit, she managed to keep the helicopter airborne long enough to reach a secure landing zone. Her skill and courage saved the lives of 6 wounded soldiers, but military regulations prevented her from receiving combat decorations for her actions. The absurdity of her situation became even more apparent when Lisa was assigned to fly alongside Apache helicopters during joint operations. She would watch Apache pilots engage enemy targets while she provided transport support, knowing that she was better qualified than many of the attack helicopter pilots, but prohibited from doing their job because of her gender. Lisa began documenting instances where the combat exclusion policy created operational inefficiencies and put lives at risk. She compiled detailed reports showing how qualified female pilots were underutilized while the Army faced chronic shortages of Apache pilots in combat zones. Her documentation would later become crucial evidence in legal challenges to the combat exclusion policy. The emotional toll of watching less qualified male pilots receive opportunities she was denied began affecting Lisa's personal life. She struggled with depression and anger, feeling that her military service was being wasted due to outdated gender stereotypes. Her family noticed changes in her personality during leave periods, as she became increasingly frustrated with a system that refused to recognize her capabilities. During her second deployment to Iraq, Lisa witnessed a tragic incident that would change her perspective on fighting the combat exclusion policy. A male Apache pilot with minimal experience crashed during a routine mission, killing both crew members and destroying a multi-million-dollar aircraft. Lisa knew that with proper training and experience, the accident could have been prevented. The waste of human life and resources convinced her that challenging discriminatory policies was not just about her career, but about military effectiveness and the lives of fellow soldiers. Colonel Vasquez continued to mentor Lisa throughout this period, connecting her with other female military officers who were working to challenge gender restrictions. These women included lawyers, pilots, and combat veterans who understood that the exclusion policies were becoming increasingly outdated as warfare evolved and the military faced personnel shortages in critical specialties. The turning point in Lisa's career came during her assignment to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, in 2008. The 101st Airborne Division was experiencing severe Apache pilot shortages due to the demands of ongoing operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Qualified attack helicopter pilots were desperately needed, but the Army continued to exclude women from these positions, despite having skilled female aviators available. Major General Patricia Hayes, the division commander, was growing increasingly frustrated with Pentagon policies that prevented her from utilizing her most qualified pilots. General Hayes had observed Lisa's exceptional performance during training exercises and knew she was better qualified than many male Apache pilots in the division. The general began quietly advocating for policy changes that would allow commanders to assign personnel based on ability rather than gender. Lisa's opportunity came through an unexpected channel. The Army's Combat Aviation Brigade was selected to participate in a classified research project evaluating the integration of women into combat aviation roles. The project, conducted jointly with RAND Corporation researchers, would assess whether female pilots could perform effectively in attack helicopter missions under simulated combat conditions. The research program required absolute secrecy due to the sensitive nature of challenging existing military policies. Lisa was one of 12 female pilots selected to participate in the 6-month evaluation, which would involve intensive Apache training, followed by realistic combat simulations. The participants understood that the results could either advance or set back efforts to integrate women into combat aviation roles. Training began at the Army's premier helicopter training facility, where Lisa finally got her hands on the controls of an AH-64 Apache. The aircraft was everything she had imagined and more, a complex, powerful machine capable of devastating enemy forces while protecting friendly troops. Her years of experience in Blackhawks translated well to the Apache's systems, and she quickly mastered the intricate weapons and navigation equipment. The Apache's tandem cockpit configuration placed the pilot in the rear seat with the co-pilot, gunner in front, requiring intense coordination between crew members. Lisa excelled at this teamwork aspect, developing effective communication protocols with her assigned gunner that maximized their combat effectiveness. Her instructors noted that she adapted to the Apache systems faster than most male pilots they had trained. Physical demands of flying the Apache proved challenging but manageable for Lisa. The aircraft's controls required significant upper body strength during combat maneuvers, and the weight of survival gear and armor placed additional strain on pilots during long missions. Lisa had maintained excellent physical condition throughout her military career, and she met all physical requirements for Apache operations. The simulated combat scenarios were designed to replicate the most challenging conditions Apache pilots faced in Iraq and Afghanistan. Lisa flew missions involving close air support for ground troops, convoy escort duties, reconnaissance operations, and direct attacks on enemy positions. Each scenario was evaluated by experienced Apache pilots and combat veterans who assessed her decision-making, technical skills, and tactical awareness. During one particularly challenging simulation, Lisa's Apache suffered simulated battle damage while providing close air support for a surrounded infantry unit. With limited visibility due to simulated smoke and dust, and with one engine operating at reduced power, she had to navigate through mountainous terrain while continuing to engage enemy targets threatening friendly forces. Her performance during this scenario impressed even skeptical evaluators. The research program also included extensive psychological and sociological evaluations to assess whether mixed-gender Apache crews could function effectively under combat stress. Lisa worked with both male and female gunners during different phases of the program, demonstrating that crew effectiveness depended on individual competence and training rather than gender composition. Media attention surrounding women's military roles was growing during this period, with high-profile cases of female soldiers receiving combat decorations, despite being officially excluded from combat positions. Lisa and other program participants understood that their performance would be scrutinized by both supporters and opponents of military integration policies. Results from the research program exceeded all expectations. Female pilots performed comparably to male pilots in all measured categories, including technical proficiency, tactical decision-making, and performance under stress. Lisa ranked among the top 3 pilots in the entire program, regardless of gender, and her evaluations consistently praised her professionalism and combat readiness. The success of the research program provided ammunition for military leaders who were advocating for policy changes. General Hayes and other commanders now had concrete data showing that qualified women could perform Apache missions effectively, making it increasingly difficult for Pentagon officials to maintain blanket exclusions based on gender rather than ability. However, the research results also triggered backlash from conservative military leaders and political figures who opposed expanding women's combat roles. Lisa found herself at the center of a national debate about military policies and gender equality, with her personal performance being analyzed by politicians and pundits who had never served in combat or flown military aircraft. By 2010, Lisa had become the unofficial face of the movement to integrate women into combat aviation roles, though she never sought the spotlight. Military advocacy groups, women's rights organizations, and progressive politicians began citing her exceptional performance as evidence that gender restrictions were outdated and counterproductive. Lisa preferred to let her flying speak for itself, but she understood that her visibility was important for advancing broader policy changes. The legal challenge that would ultimately change military policy began when the American Civil Liberties Union approached Lisa about joining a federal lawsuit challenging the combat exclusion rule. The lawsuit, which would become known as Hagar versus Panetta, argued that the policy violated the constitutional rights of qualified military women by preventing them from advancing their careers based solely on gender. Lisa initially hesitated to join the lawsuit, knowing that challenging military policy through civilian courts was controversial and could damage her career. However, after witnessing continued inefficiencies caused by the exclusion policy and watching qualified female pilots leave the military in frustration, she decided that legal action was necessary to create meaningful change. The lawsuit filed in federal court in 2012 included detailed documentation of Lisa's superior performance compared to many male Apache pilots who were allowed to serve in combat roles. Her flight records, training evaluations, and combat performance during simulated missions provided compelling evidence that the exclusion policy was based on outdated assumptions rather than objective performance standards. Pentagon lawyers argued that the combat exclusion policy was necessary to maintain unit cohesion, and that integrating women into combat roles could compromise military effectiveness. However, Lisa's documented performance and the success of the research program she had participated in undermined these arguments by demonstrating that qualified women could enhance rather than degrade military capabilities. The legal battle attracted significant media attention, with Lisa appearing on news programs and testifying before congressional committees about her experiences. She spoke eloquently about the frustration of being denied opportunities to serve her country fully, while watching less qualified male pilots receive combat assignments she was better prepared to handle. During her congressional testimony, Lisa presented specific examples of how the combat exclusion policy had created operational problems in Iraq and Afghanistan. She described situations where female pilots had performed combat missions in all but name, taking enemy fire and making life-or-death decisions while being officially classified as non-combat personnel. Opposition to the lawsuit came from predictable sources, including conservative military organizations and politicians who argued that integrating women into combat roles would weaken military effectiveness and put female soldiers at unacceptable risk. Lisa faced personal attacks questioning her motivations and suggesting that her legal challenge was driven by political rather than military considerations. The stress of the legal battle took a personal toll on Lisa, who continued flying black hawks while her case worked through federal courts. She dealt with harassment from some male colleagues who opposed her challenge to military policy, while also receiving support from others who recognized the unfairness of the current system. The division within military ranks reflected broader national debates about gender equality and military effectiveness. A breakthrough came in 2012 when Defense Secretary Leon Panetta announced that the Pentagon was reviewing the combat exclusion policy and considering changes that would open more military occupations to women. The announcement was partially driven by the legal pressure from Lisa's lawsuit and similar challenges, as well as recognition that the policy was becoming increasingly difficult to defend. Lisa's case received additional support when former military leaders, including retired generals and admirals, submitted court documents supporting the lawsuit. These senior officers argued that the combat exclusion policy was harming military readiness by preventing commanders from utilizing their most qualified personnel, regardless of gender. The most compelling moment in the legal battle came when Apache pilots who had served alongside Lisa during training exercises testified about her exceptional abilities. These male pilots, some of whom had initially opposed integrating women into combat roles, acknowledged that Lisa was among the most skilled aviators they had encountered and would be a valuable addition to any Apache unit. Defense Department. Officials began implementing incremental changes to military policy while the lawsuit continued, opening some previously restricted positions to women and conducting additional studies on gender integration. These changes suggested that military leadership was preparing for broader policy shifts while trying to maintain some control over the pace and scope of integration. The legal proceedings also revealed internal Pentagon studies showing that many assumptions about women's combat capabilities were based on outdated research and cultural biases, rather than current performance data. Lisa's documented performance and that of other female pilots demonstrated that individual qualifications were more important than gender in determining combat effectiveness. As the lawsuit progressed through federal courts, Lisa continued her military service with distinction, knowing that her case would eventually determine whether qualified women could serve their country without artificial restrictions. The outcome would affect not only her career, but the opportunities available to future generations of female military personnel. The breakthrough Lisa had been working toward came in January 2013, when Defense Secretary Leon Panetta announced the official lifting of the ban on women serving in combat positions. The policy change, which would be implemented over several years, opened approximately 237,000 military positions to qualified women, including Apache helicopter pilot roles that Lisa had been fighting to access. The announcement vindicated Lisa's years of legal battles and demonstrated that her lawsuit had been instrumental in forcing policy changes. Military leaders acknowledged that the exclusion policy could no longer be defended in light of women's proven performance in Iraq and Afghanistan operations, where the lines between combat and support roles had become increasingly blurred. Lisa's first official Apache assignment came 6 months later, when she was transferred to the 1st Cavalry Division at Fort Hood, Texas. After 15 years of military service, she would finally fly the aircraft she had dreamed of piloting since childhood. The assignment represented not just personal victory, but validation of her argument that military effectiveness should be based on individual qualifications rather than gender. Training for her new role proceeded smoothly, as Lisa's years of helicopter experience and her participation in the classified research program had already prepared her for Apache operations. Her male colleagues in the unit initially watched her performance carefully, but any skepticism quickly dissolved as she demonstrated superior flying skills and tactical knowledge. Lisa's first combat deployment as an Apache pilot took her back to Afghanistan in late 2013, where she would finally serve in the role she had been qualified for throughout her career. The deployment was significant not only for Lisa personally, but also as a test case for the military's new integration policies. Her performance would be closely monitored by Pentagon officials and military leaders worldwide. The Apache unit's mission in Afghanistan involved providing close air support for ground forces operating in remote mountain regions where Taliban fighters maintained strongholds. These operations required exceptional flying skills, as pilots had to navigate through treacherous terrain while coordinating attacks on enemy positions near friendly forces. Lisa's first combat mission as an Apache pilot came during a Taliban assault on a remote outpost manned by American and Afghan forces. Enemy fighters had surrounded the base and were attempting to overrun defensive positions, using coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Lisa and her wingman were called in to provide immediate close air support to prevent the base from being captured. Flying through mountainous terrain at night, Lisa used her Apache's advanced targeting systems to identify enemy positions while avoiding friendly forces. Her first engagement involved destroying a Taliban machine gun position that had been pinning down American soldiers, allowing them to reposition and strengthen their defenses. The battle continued for several hours, with Lisa providing continuous fire support while managing her aircraft's fuel and ammunition carefully. Her precision strikes eliminated enemy fighters while avoiding civilian structures in the nearby village, demonstrating the tactical discrimination that effective Apache pilots required. When dawn broke over the battlefield, the Taliban assault had been repelled, with Lisa's Apache providing the decisive firepower that saved the American outpost. The ground commander's after-action report specifically praised her performance, noting that her tactical decisions and marksmanship had been crucial to the successful defense. News of Lisa's successful combat performance spread quickly through military channels and eventually reached media outlets covering women's integration into combat roles. Her achievement represented the first officially recognized combat mission flown by a female Apache pilot, making her a symbol of the military's evolving policies. The success of her first combat mission opened doors for additional challenging assignments. Lisa was selected for a specialized Apache unit that conducted high-risk missions in support of Special Operations Forces, where her exceptional skills were recognized regardless of her gender. During one particularly dangerous mission, Lisa's Apache provided close air support for a Special Forces raid on a Taliban commander's compound. The operation required precise coordination between air and ground forces, as the target building was located in a densely populated area where civilian casualties had to be avoided at all costs. Lisa's performance during this mission exceeded all expectations, as she successfully engaged multiple enemy positions while guiding her aircraft through complex urban terrain. Her precision strikes eliminated threats to the ground team, while avoiding damage to civilian structures, demonstrating the high level of skill required for modern combat operations. The mission's success earned Lisa recognition from Special Operations commanders who had initially been skeptical about working with female Apache pilots. Her professionalism and combat effectiveness had proven that gender was irrelevant when it came to military competence and reliability. By the end of her deployment, Lisa had flown over 100 combat missions and established herself as one of the most effective Apache pilots in her unit. Her performance data showed that she exceeded average performance metrics in all categories, including mission success rates, fuel efficiency, and ammunition conservation. The documentation of Lisa's exceptional combat performance provided military leaders with concrete evidence that the integration of women into combat roles was enhancing rather than compromising military effectiveness. Her success encouraged other qualified female pilots to pursue Apache training, gradually increasing the representation of women in attack helicopter units. Lisa's success in Afghanistan led to her promotion to major and assignment as an Apache company commander, making her one of the first women to lead an attack helicopter unit in the Army's history. The promotion represented both recognition of her exceptional performance and confidence in her ability to lead other combat pilots in operational environments. Taking command of Alpha Company, 1st Attack Reconnaissance Battalion, Lisa inherited a unit with both experienced and novice Apache pilots preparing for deployment to Iraq. The unit included both male and female pilots, and Lisa's leadership would be crucial in maintaining unit cohesion while maximizing combat effectiveness during their upcoming deployment. The challenge of commanding male pilots, who had initially opposed women's integration into combat roles, required diplomatic leadership skills that Lisa had developed throughout her career. She focused on establishing performance standards and mission requirements that applied equally to all pilots, regardless of gender, while working to address any lingering concerns about mixed-gender combat units. Lisa's leadership philosophy emphasized leading by example rather than relying solely on rank and authority. She continued flying the most dangerous missions herself, while ensuring that all pilots under her command received proper training and support. Her approach earned respect from even the most skeptical male pilots in the unit. Preparation for the Iraq deployment required intensive training in urban combat operations, as the company would be supporting ground forces engaged in counterinsurgency operations in complex urban environments. Lisa developed training programs that prepared her pilots for the unique challenges of providing close air support in cities where enemy fighters could blend in with civilian populations. The deployment to Iraq in 2014 took place during the rise of ISIS, when American forces were supporting Iraqi military units fighting to prevent terrorist organizations from capturing major cities. Lisa's Apache company would provide crucial air support for Iraqi ground forces while protecting American advisors embedded with Iraqi units. One of Lisa's most challenging missions involved supporting Iraqi forces defending the city of Ramadi against an ISIS assault. The battle required her Apache pilots to provide close air support in an urban environment where ISIS fighters were using civilian buildings as fighting positions and human shields. Lisa personally led the air support mission, coordinating with Iraqi ground commanders while ensuring that her pilots followed strict rules of engagement designed to minimize civilian casualties. The complexity of the urban battlefield required split-second decisions about target identification and weapons employment. During the battle, Lisa's Apache took heavy ground fire from ISIS positions, but she continued coordinating air support for over 6 hours until the terrorist assault was repelled. Her leadership and tactical expertise were credited with saving hundreds of Iraqi soldiers and civilians, while preventing ISIS from capturing strategic positions in the city. The success at Ramadi established Lisa's reputation as one of the Army's most effective Apache commanders, and demonstrated that female officers could excel in combat leadership roles. Her unit's performance metrics during the deployment consistently ranked among the highest in the theater, with exceptional mission success rates and 0 aircraft losses. Lisa's command philosophy also focused on developing the next generation of Apache pilots, including several young women who had been inspired by her example to pursue attack helicopter careers. She established mentorship programs within her unit that paired experienced pilots with newcomers, ensuring knowledge transfer and maintaining high-performance standards. Recognition of Lisa's leadership abilities led to her selection for the Army's Elite Command and General Staff College, where she would prepare for senior leadership positions. The assignment represented another milestone, as she would be among the first female Apache pilots to advance to senior command positions. During her time at the Staff College, Lisa developed strategic thinking skills and studied advanced military operations while maintaining her flight qualifications. Her academic performance was exceptional, and she graduated at the top of her class while completing a master's thesis on integrating new technologies into attack helicopter operations. The combination of Lisa's combat experience, proven leadership, abilities, and advanced education made her a candidate for promotion to lieutenant colonel and assignment to senior positions within Army aviation. Her career trajectory demonstrated that the integration of women into combat roles was producing qualified leaders for senior military positions. Lisa's influence extended beyond her direct command responsibilities, as she became a role model for female military personnel throughout the armed forces. She spoke at military academies and professional development conferences, sharing lessons learned about leadership, combat operations, and breaking barriers in traditionally male-dominated career fields. The documentation of Lisa's career progression provided military planners with data showing that investing in qualified female officers produced long-term benefits for military organizations. Her success demonstrated that removing artificial barriers based on gender allowed the military to develop and retain talented leaders who enhanced overall organizational effectiveness. By 2015, Lisa had become one of the most recognizable female military leaders in the country, though she remained focused on her military duties rather than seeking publicity. Her primary concern continued to be ensuring that military units she served with maintained the highest standards of performance and readiness. Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Rodriguez's final military assignment took her to the Pentagon, where she worked as a senior advisor on aviation policy and integration initiatives. Her role involved developing guidelines for implementing gender-neutral military policies while ensuring that combat effectiveness remained the primary consideration in personnel decisions. The Pentagon assignment allowed Lisa to influence military policy at the highest levels, drawing on her extensive combat experience and leadership background to shape how the Army integrated women into previously restricted roles. Her recommendations were based on practical experience rather than theoretical assumptions, making them more credible with military leaders who had been skeptical of integration policies. Lisa's work focused on developing performance standards that applied equally to all military personnel regardless of gender, while identifying and eliminating institutional barriers that prevented qualified individuals from advancing their careers. Her efforts contributed to policy changes that opened additional military occupations to women and established merit-based promotion systems. During her Pentagon tenure, Lisa authored several influential studies on military effectiveness and personnel, policies that became standard references for defense officials and academic researchers. Her work demonstrated that diverse military units often outperformed homogeneous units when leadership focused on maintaining high performance standards for all personnel. The impact of Lisa's career extended far beyond her individual achievements, as she had helped establish a new paradigm for military service that emphasized individual qualifications over demographic characteristics. The success of integration policies that she had championed led to similar changes throughout the armed forces and in allied militaries worldwide. Recognition of Lisa's contributions to military aviation and personnel policy culminated in her selection for promotion to colonel and assignment as commander of a major aviation brigade. The appointment made her one of the highest-ranking female officers in Army aviation and positioned her for potential advancement to general officer ranks. As a brigade commander, Lisa oversaw multiple Apache battalions and thousands of personnel, including pilots, maintenance technicians, and support staff. Her command responsibilities included ensuring unit readiness, managing complex logistics operations, and maintaining the highest standards of safety and performance across all subordinate units. Lisa's leadership style as a senior commander emphasized developing subordinate leaders while maintaining focus on mission accomplishment. She established professional development programs that prepared junior officers for increased responsibilities, while ensuring that experienced personnel shared their knowledge with newcomers to the field. The brigade's performance under Lisa's command consistently exceeded Army standards in all measured categories, including readiness rates, safety records, and mission effectiveness. Her units deployed successfully to multiple overseas locations, providing air support for American forces and allied militaries in various operational environments. Lisa's success as a senior commander demonstrated that the integration of women into combat leadership roles was producing qualified officers capable of managing complex military organizations. Her performance validated the decisions made years earlier to eliminate gender restrictions and focus on individual merit in personnel assignments. Throughout her career, Lisa had maintained connections with younger female military personnel who looked to her as a role model and mentor. She established scholarship programs for women pursuing military aviation careers and continued advocating for policies that enabled qualified individuals to serve their country without artificial barriers. After 25 years of distinguished military service, Lisa retired from active duty in 2019 with the rank of colonel, having achieved everything she had dreamed of as a young woman fascinated by Apache helicopters. Her retirement ceremony was attended by senior military leaders, former subordinates, and family members who had supported her throughout her groundbreaking career. Lisa's legacy extended far beyond her individual achievements to include the institutional changes she had helped bring about and the doors she had opened for future generations of military women. The policies she had championed and the precedents she had established would benefit countless female service members who followed in her footsteps. In retirement, Lisa continued serving her country as a defense consultant and advocate for military personnel policies. She worked with defense contractors developing next-generation aviation technologies and served on advisory boards addressing veteran affairs and military family support issues. The transformation of military aviation from Lisa's early career, when women were excluded from combat roles, to her retirement, when gender-integrated units were the norm, represented one of the most significant policy changes in modern military history. Her role in driving these changes demonstrated the power of individual determination, combined with legal advocacy and institutional support. Lisa's story became a case study taught at military academies and leadership schools, illustrating how qualified individuals could challenge unfair policies while maintaining military professionalism and effectiveness. Her career demonstrated that advancing equality and maintaining military readiness were complementary rather than competing objectives. The impact of Lisa's career continued influencing military policy and personnel decisions long after her retirement, as the principles she had advocated became embedded in military culture and institutional practices. Her legacy ensured that future military leaders would evaluate personnel based on ability and performance rather than demographic characteristics, creating opportunities for all qualified individuals to serve their country fully.